Hello folks, I'm L.A. Little and this is your daily NeoTA wrap. We take a look at these markets. We do it from a neoclassical perspective each time, looking at these and asking ourselves one question: what happened today? What's it going to tell us about the coming days? Do the show 4 times a week, Monday through Thursday, broadcast at or before 10 o'clock Eastern Time, archived on YouTube. It's under the channel L.A. Little. Subscribe there. Anytime content's pushed, you'll be notified. Also do a show on Sunday. We do a little bit longer view, looking at intermediate, long-term view. Altogether, pretty good perspective of what's going on. Last night we talked about markets looked like they wanted to try to come back. That is what they did. Let's go to the numbers first. Down 1% across the board pretty much. Industrials was the only one that wasn't. And there was earnings, I think, in Disney that was holding this guy up today. The big move down, IndX, Apple came off pretty hard. Gold, silver, all those went up, but they were struggling. Dollar was down. We talked about that last night. It looked like the dollar was going to try to pull back. That is in fact what it did. And actually most things played out kind of the way we thought, with the one exception. And that is that they come down a lot harder than we thought. Other than that, they did what we thought. Here we go. Let's look at the markets. Okay, so how many times have we done this? I mean, we have talked about this over and over. And that is that you keep getting these gyrations up and down, right? Over and over and over. We've been doing it for months. We've been doing it basically the whole year. Big, wide, large gyrations up and down. And here we are in May. Started it out at the beginning of the year. Where are we going? Basically nowhere. We're still sitting about where we were, right? I mean, we were somewhere in this area. We're basically unchanged on the year. So, is it, I guess the question is, does this mean something, right? That's got to be the question. Does it mean anything that you come down hard? Well, looking at this chart, no, it doesn't mean a darn thing, right? I mean, you've done it many times. The question is what does it do when it gets to something important? It's not what it does in between, it's what it does when it gets to something important. What was important on this chart? Well, clearly these highs were important, and each test into them, each one of them fails over and over and over. It's telling us it cannot go higher. There's nothing out there to take us higher. And we keep relying on the overseas markets to keep us up. Well, folks, those guys are starting to come down too, and that's a problem. We'll look at them in a second, but anyway, we got a swing point low, swing point low, swing point low, swing point low. Keep counting. They're all over the place. If we do get more push, right, especially if we get down and break this area, right, that's going to be a problem. And let me pop out to the weekly. And I'll show you what I'm looking at, right? You've kind of got, that's those lows down there. That's the range. That range is held now for, a good month and a half, 2 months. It started off the February move, so it's basically 2.5, almost, it's actually 3 months at this point. 3-month range. When's the last time we had a 3-month range? Well, it was back over here we had a 3-month range. It was actually from about October to the middle of the, to the beginning of the year. So basically, yeah, about October, late October. That was about a 3.5, 4-month range. And I went ahead and drew it out because, you actually had highs back here. And then you got the one underneath, right? If you start breaking the lows, right, the cascade effect is possible, right? Because you got all these swing point lows lined up along the way here. And so this one's already been broken. There's another one over here, and there's another one there. All those swing point lows, there's 5 of them up here on this time frame. If they break, they can lead to a faster move, right? Faster move. Especially if they consolidate on the way. In other words, you come down here and you just kind of hang. Just like you hang up here before you break out, right? That's what gets you the juice. Why? Well, because stops build up, right? If I'm long, and this comes down here and just kind of hangs, and we've been going sideways for 4 months, where am I going to put my stops? Or where am I going to think that I'm going to get out if things start going bad? Well, I'm going to do it when they break. Well, the guys that want to break it know that too. That's where significance is. Significance is where it's important. And unless you break things of significance, if you just test them and you test them in such a way that it tells you you can't break it, which is what we just did here at the high, right? Couldn't break it. Well, then that says you're going to go back the other way. You can't get out that way. What is the market? The market is a voting machine, right? They try to get out, break out. If they can't, they try to break down. That is what a market is. A market is a medium of exchange. It's where parties come together and they part their ways with their wares, right? Somebody buys it, somebody sells it. They exchange their goods. And if you can't get higher prices for your goods, well, then you're going to go test the other side, right? Because that's just the way it works. And I expect it's going to try to test the other side. Let's move on. I kind of got digressed there, but anyway, that's the S&P 500. If we look at the weaker guys, here's the NDX. NDX is coming down. You got all these swing point lows. They're much closer on this one. It looks to me like this is going to go after this swing point low tomorrow, 49.12. And then if it gets into it, right, I don't know that it's going to break it yet. And I don't know that because if I look at the NDX isn't quite as bad off yet. If the NDX gets underneath this big bar and volume expands again tomorrow, then all bets are off and we go down. But finally, I was telling folks today to look at the Russell, the folks that were trading with me. And the Russell, 12.16.10, closes 12.15.42. It's under that. What is that? That's an ABCD structure down. Now again, I don't want to put too much weight on these because they keep failing. But if this does extend, right, it's going to take it all the way back down to, and let me get the weekly, it's going to take it all the way back down to this area. Right into here, this big bar. The big bar is 11.98. So, the bottom of it is, let me go back to the daily. Let me get the number again. So the top was 1275. I think it was almost 100. 60 points. 60 points off of this is 1280. Go back to this chart, 1280. Excuse me, 1180. 1180 is into that bar, and then almost to this one, right? That's the big one. Now what's important about that is over here, the swing point highs low is 1185. So in other words, if you do a full extension, it's going to take it right underneath the bullish retest region zone, and you're coming at it with volume. Now this bar I suspect is going to hold it the first time. If that's all true, if all this plays out that way, I would expect it hits down here, and that becomes the buy on this particular stock or this index for this short period of time for a bounce. And then what will that do? Well, potentially set up another one, but that's farther down the road. Okay, let's go back to, I wanted to talk about one other thing. Every day I go through stocks that have reported earnings. And the reason I'm talking about it now is the Russell. Most of the stocks right now that are coming out with their earnings are the small caps. They're not the big caps. Big caps already reported. They look like death. Looks like a graveyard. I mean, they've been beaten up, they got a little bounce going, and now they're just getting whacked back down again. And I looked at 350 charts before I came on. 300 of them were probably Russell stocks. Yeah, I don't know if it's 300, but it's a lot of them. And this reflects what's going on underneath the covers, right? If you looked at as many charts as I look at, you wouldn't be all that optimistic right now because they look terrible. They don't look good at all. When we come back, we'll look at some sectors real quick and give you a final thought here as we look at the world markets, because what is moving us? It's the world, it's not us. I'll be right back.
Learn how to trade with the Trade with LA service provided to you by TA Today. This service includes daily portfolio and comments that are emailed to you before the market opens each morning. We provide a daily view of the markets and a model portfolio you can follow, even if you work another job. Every weekend, LA records his weekend broadcasts that gives you a synopsis of the week and a prognosis of coming weeks. You will also have access to our Teach and Trade room, where LA provides day trades and teaches neoclassical concepts throughout the trading day. To get started, go to our homepage and click Trade with LA.
All right, everybody. Last night we were talking about the dollar. We were talking about the dollar had failed at this high. It tried again today. Still doesn't have the volume. This seems to try to come back again tomorrow. That also suggests more pressure on these markets. If I look at the sectors, and I'm just going to flip through them and let you take a look at them. What I want you to notice on these, notice the L's on here. Notice the swing point lows, right? They're all over the place on all these charts. When those break, that changes trend. It changes trend in a confirmed or suspect bearish mode. One thing I've always told anyone that's interested in learning how to trade is that let me log in here. Is that if you want to know, if you want to follow what's happening with the markets, just pop over here and take a look at these trends. When these start turning bearish and you get 2 or 3 of them to go, well, first you go from bullish to sideways. Once they do that, right, the next move down is bearish. So once you get about 2, maybe 3 of these sideways, well, you can expect the most of them are probably going to get there. And once 2 or 3 of them go bearish, well, then you can expect the rest of them to try to get there. And that will be true here as well as there. And you've already got the Russell doing it up here. And you've got one bearish one I see here on consumer staples, which is kind of interesting. That's the way this thing works. It works the same in all these, and it goes from left to right. These drive these drive those, right, in terms of time frames. Okay, so going back to the charts, if you look at these charts and you look at those swing point lows, just look at where they're lined up. They're all lined up to start breaking. That's the IVB. Here's the ITB is already broke. Here's that transports, which all of a sudden looked like they were going back to the moon, and before you know it, and look at them on a weekly, before you know it, they're down here breaking the weekly, right? They couldn't break it last time. They're going to try to break it this time. If they do, what's left? October, the lows of October, folks. I mean, there's nothing here. We've been going flat for so long. There's just nothing there. Socks. Also getting ready to break down. If we look at you just go down the list, right? XLB's been strong. XLE today, oil rocks higher. Libya says they're not going to produce anymore for a while. They can't export. Rocks higher. What happens? The energy sector sells off. If that doesn't tell you something, I don't know what will. Financials trying to break out today. They had Warren Buffett yesterday with Berkshire Hathaway. All that love fest that goes on there. Got the nice push up yesterday, was pushing all morning this morning, finally gives it up, drops 1%. Bunch of swing point lows down there. XLI trying to break those swing point lows already. XLK a little ways away from them. It's been strong. XLP we just said is already in a bearish mode, got more swing points to break. XLU is even going after them, breaks one today. XLV also, they're all lined up down here, 1, 2, 3. And finally, the one that's been the strongest, consumer discretionary, what does it have? 5 of them lined up. I mean, come on. You talk about lining them up. Now, why does this happen? This happens because, why? Well, because these markets have been going sideways, right? The longer you go sideways, the more of these build up, the bigger the thrust when they break, right? Either way. All right. Let's go look at the overseas markets and call it a wrap. I'll be right back for that. So as we talked about a little bit earlier, overseas markets really are the driver. What do you have happening in most of these? Well, you got these consolidations. Here's our friends in Australia. Swing point lows down here. They're coming down. They're going to try to test again. If we go to India, India has been trying to bounce, got a little bounce going. Nothing special. It's doing a bearish retest regen. So folks over there, watch this. If it gets above it, then that says, hey, we're going to go sideways for a while, and this downtrend that we've been in is over for now. I'm not sure it's going to get over it. It just doesn't look like it's got the juice. I expect it to probably fail. Brazil's been on a tear, and Brazil continues to be on a tear again today. Now, if you look at it a little bit longer term, it doesn't look quite as exciting. Just a big range, but still, I mean, compared to everything else, doing pretty good. I don't have my volumes in on the CACs under the low. What is that? That's an ABCD structure on the way down. And so you get the push, right? Get the bounce. And then today, it actually got into that low. It tested into it, right? No volume. I didn't see the volumes yet, but I don't think they're that big from what I saw earlier, right? And that number, that low was 5132. You got to 5133. You test into it, you give it up, you flip around. Downtown, baby, we're coming the other way, and that's an ABCD structure to take it down and break some lows. So, bullish, let's go back to this and remember what happened. Bullish, retest regen, holds. You get the bounce. Then what do you got? You got the bearish retest regen on the way back. What does it do? Regens lower and takes out the bullish one. That's not good. That says this thing is going to drive lower, and we're going to get a push down into this area. That's what that one's going to try to do. If we look at the CACs, the DAX, the German index, worse. It's just as bad. This one actually tested into them. Last night it had not got into this one. It did today. Gets into both of them. Again, fails, heads back the other way, and it looks like it's got an ABCD going on the way down to 27, 31. Yeah, it's got an ABCD going on the downside as well. So you got the same sort of thing happening here. Bounce up, right? Bring it back, and it's going to still try to get back into this bar. That's the one we've been looking at. I suspect that's where it's going. If we look at the FTSE, I'm not sure what the FTSE's doing. Nothing really there. It looks like we got a day off or something here. That one's probably not a real bar. Have to get that cleaned up. Toronto, my friends up north, let's see what they're doing. Wow. This one's going to come back, just like everything else. It's going to come into this big bar. That's the March 20th. I think that was quad witching, if I remember right. It's going to come all the way down there, it looks like to me. Yeah, I don't see anything to stop it. Let's see what the weekly looks like. Yeah, so that number is 14,878. Let me go back here. Yeah, so it's going to come into that bar. And the bottom of that bar is that number. Looks like this zone is where it's trying to get to. Hong Kong. Actually, it's the China H shares. China got sold off last night, 4%. I suspect China's going to get sold off again tonight, but we'll see. They're going to try to get to this bar, right? And on the Shanghai, that's about 4,000. I believe it's 4,000. I'll look at the Shanghai next. But they're going to try to pull this back and do what? Range trade it. We've been talking about that range trade's coming. That range trade, it looks like it is here now. And it looks like to me they're going to try to get into this area. That's the two big bars, that's the gap, that's where it's going to try to go. And so then you'd have this a large range to start with, and Lord forbid if they actually get it going down to the downside, because it would take it all the way back to the breakout area. But that's a long ways off, and I don't think it's going to do it yet. This is the number though. The April 9th bar is the bar you want to be looking at. Let's go to Shanghai. I still don't have my data in here. I was going to get it in today and I get a chance. It's at 43. Yeah, it looks to me like it's going about 4,000. No real volume here still. If you get volume tonight, expand, then that tells you got the range trade finally. Let's go back to Hong Kong. Let's see what the Hong Kong looks like. That one also comes back. Same thing. April 9th bar is where it's trying to go. I got the Nifty 50 up. Let's see what they look like. It looks about the same, doing a retest regen for that. So that's my folks over in India and Taiwan. Taiwan's going to try to hold. So Taiwan, this was a magnificent run, right? And what does it do? It comes right back into those bars. You know, when I talked at the top of the show, areas of significance, this is significant. You have to be able to pick those out and then see what that test looks like. If it can hold it, then it's telling you something. If it can't, it's telling you something there too. It's telling you a different story. Create a thesis, watch for the test, make a decision. These markets are going to head back down a little bit more tomorrow. If the Russell breaks, and breaks, and what I'm talking about is breaks big. And let me pop the Russell back up here. And that's the bar there, right? And if it breaks big, what I'm talking about is it comes all the way back. So we're already underneath there. In other words, if it extends, that's what I mean by break big here. If it extends and gets back in this bar, tomorrow it could try to run all the way back down there. And that's probably going to be the buy if it does it. Tomorrow is Wednesday, so we got 2 days before the next big, well actually you got a bunch of PMIs tomorrow. Today the news was mixed, but a little bit more negative than positive on the economy again, which is par for the course right now. But PMIs tomorrow, you got like 4 or 5 of them. If those print bad and Hong Kong gets into a selling mode tonight, look out tomorrow. It might be getting pretty ugly here. All right. Going to set up a buy though. You need a washout, right? This market needs a washout. My God, it needs a washout. I mean, look at this. Let me go pull up the weekly. My goodness. You know, can we get a washout? Can we get this thing back down here and get everybody scared? Right? That's when you can get some opportunity. Folks, have yourself a great one. Take care. I'll see you tomorrow. Good night.